This video is going to be a little bit different than the types of videos I normally make. This video is going to be a little uncomfortable. It's going to be very difficult to hear the things that happen. It's going to be very difficult to see the things that happened afterwards and the people talking about this. But if you want to see this video, please stick around. If you don't, I understand this video will not be for everybody. Thank you. On February 14th, Valentine's Day, a mass shooting occurred in the Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, a Miami metropolitan area. 17 people were killed and 15 more were taken to the hospital, making this one of the worst school shootings ever. The suspect, and we all know who he is, his name we will not share. Instead, we will just call him the shooter. He was arrested and brought in alive. So what makes this school shooting so different than any other mass shooting or terrorist type attack that's happened recently? Well, it's not so much the shooting that makes it different. As disgusting and as awful as the shooting was, we have had mass shootings before. There's nothing okay about what happened. There are 17 lives gone that will never come back. For all intents and purposes, young adults who were just getting their lives started. But before we start talking about why this happened, let's talk about how it happened, because it seems like this is a failure on every single front. First and foremost being that of the FBI, who was warned of his tendencies and was warned that he said he was going to become a school shooter and did nothing to act on it. Perhaps they were busy investigating some sort of presidential election. And YouTube, being the bastion they are, deleted any evidence of this right after the shooting. On top of this, he had other various disturbing online posts saying, I want to shoot people with my AR-15. I want to die fighting, killing shit ton of people. I am going to kill law enforcement one day. They go after good people. Deputies were called to the boy's house 39 times over 7 years, as well as a litany of other awful things on his Instagram page, including weapons, dead animals, and threats that I will not post here because I will not give the attention, and I do not want this video removed for those images. So to say that there were no red flags or that the proper people were not warned of this scum bitch's behavior is just not correct. The signs were there. The correct people were notified that this individual, this shooter, was not stable and was not a good individual. This is not the type of person who should be walking free in society, able to obtain anything that he had. He had an AR-15. He was able to legally buy an AR-15 because the proper restrictions were not put in place by the FBI as they were warned about him. He was also able to obtain things like smoke grenades that we still do not know how he got. Everybody who knows or has talked to the boy has all said kind of the same thing. I know him. I knew there wasn't something right about him. Why didn't you say something? How come it came down to people on YouTube, not the people in his life or his school teachers to say something? 39 times the police were called. How come they didn't do anything? Instagram and YouTube saw these comments. These were reported to them. How come they didn't do anything? If everybody who knew the shooter, saw the shooter, talked to the shooter, read something the shooter posted, reviewed the shooter's online activity saying he wants to kill cops, die fighting, become a school shooter, posting pictures of guns, knives, dead animals, how come this was able to happen? How is this a failure on every front, down to the FBI, the local law enforcement, and even the Uber driver who dropped him off at the school with the gun bag with him, dropped him off at the school? So besides everybody around him and every person who was ever warned of this kid ignoring every red flag that was obviously put in front of them for them to handle, besides the see something, say something people doing nothing when told, what else is so bizarre about this situation? They say from tragedy you can see people's true colors, and I think we have. I will encourage you to pause the video as these next few screenshots roll across because of what is said on them. I encourage you to stop and read them because they are very interesting. What you're seeing now are reporters for various news outlets including CNN, the Miami Herald, and so on, asking students who posted about the shooting on social media to DM them to set up an interview with the news before their friends are even picked up. These vultures of reporters are asking these students while they're being shot at for interview. The media's brazen disregard for people who are alive or dead in this shooting is astounding. How far they are willing to go, including standing on the graves of children who are not dead and rubbing it in the faces of the other students still going through the shooting in order to get a news story. It is disgusting. I am not by any stretch of the imagination a kind of conspiratorial-minded person. I don't buy into conspiracy theories very easily, but I do remain skeptical that everything is not as it seems. Take this 1-minute clip from CNN coaching one of these students as to what to say about what happened.
Because we had a fire alarm earlier that day, and that was a drill, so we thought this was a drill too, just another one. Because we have a lot of fire alarms, a lot of fire drills at the school. After we heard the first gunshot, we initially thought it was a drill. Actually, that was a bad choice.
It's okay, you're fine.
Actually, that was a bad choice because the janitor... Sorry.
It's okay. You're fine, David. You're fine.
Honestly, when I was going out, I was kind of in... Hold on.
It's okay.
When I was going out, I was in shock.
Yeah, saying I don't know how to put this in perspective. It's okay.
So most of my friends that made it out, one of them went into a bathroom in the same, I believe, in the same hallway as the shooter. Oh, hold on.
It's okay.
One of them went into the same bathroom, I believe, as the hallway shooter. He was in there at the same time, and he was in the bathroom, and he didn't know if he was going to live.
This is David Hogg, a student at the high school. He was a witness to the shooting, but this isn't the first time he's had his TV debut. He's also been interviewed by TV stations before about various things he's witnessed. This is a different female classmate whose name I couldn't find. I couldn't find her interview. I tried looking. I didn't even know what to look for, but this was the face she gave at the interview after 17 of her classmates were killed. That doesn't seem right to me. But Sinatra, are you saying professional crisis actors? No, not at all. I'm saying that these kids are coached by the media to say certain things. And if you don't believe me, look at this one. Cameron Kansky, angry, scared, confused, grieving, and sick of the NRA fostering and promoting this gun culture. Founder of hashtag Never Again at Never Again MSD. March for Our Lives. Now, I genuinely don't know what is more disgusting, the fact that the media is pushing these kids into the spotlight because they're calling for the legislative changes that the media finds okay, or the fact that this is the only time the media puts victims in front of the camera is when there's a school shooting. Did the media put any of the victims of the Boston bombing, Fort Hood, the Orlando shooting, any of the Truck of Peace attacks, anything? Did the media put any of them in front of the camera to advocate for immigration reform? Of course not, because that's not the narrative the media wants to spin. Take a second here. Please pause the video and type in the comments what you think about this. I did not see one single victim of James Hodgkinson put in front of a CNN camera to talk about how the violent rhetoric against the right needs to be toned down when he opened up fire and shot a baseball field full of Republican congressmen. Why do you think that is? It's almost like the media is trying to spin a narrative, but that's not surprising considering the fact that while they're being shot at, they're asking for interviews. We should not be surprised by this, though. People of the slacktivist left, the Jimmy Kimmels, who just come out on TV and cry and say if you don't agree with their policy, their political idea about what happened, somehow makes you a bad person for not agreeing with them. These are the type of people who will always take a tragedy, take an act of pure evil, and try to get something out of it. Take a look at this interview from the 4 kids on Fox News and listen to the absolute insane disconnect from reality these students have. And before you go, well, they are high school students. Exactly. They are high school students. So why are we looking to high school students who don't know anything to be leaders for a movement that the left has been trying to do for decades? What makes these high school students leaders?
Today, I'd like to announce that we have an event coming up to have everybody in the nation talking about what we're talking about.
Because what you're talking about has never been talked about before, right? Right, Cameron? No one's ever talked about what you want to talk about before.
And one of the things we've been hearing is that it's not the time yet to talk about gun control.
The only time I see people saying it's not the time to talk about gun control is like the day the shooting happened. But I still see people talking about it, so I think that's a very invalid point. I think you're just trying to use a talking point that doesn't really exist.
And we respect that. We've lost 17 lives, and our community took 17 bullets to the heart.
Now keep that quote in mind right there. Our community took 17 bullets to the heart. That's deep, right? But is it the right thing to say to push your personal political policy prescription from this? 17 people I know died. Let me push what I think should happen in the government from this. Let me stand on the graves of my friends. What the fuck?
And it's difficult to come back from that. So here's the time that we're going to talk about gun control. March 24th, we have the March for Our Lives.
I disagree with it, but I believe it is his right to hold a political demonstration if he so chooses.
Which you can find at marchforourlives.com and expect to see us a lot. The March for Our Lives is going to be in every major city, and we are organizing it so students everywhere can beg for our lives.
Okay, first off, how? How are you funding this? And who are you begging for your lives from? Trump? Like Trump has some switch that'll stop school shootings from happening? What is the point of this?
Because at the end of the day, this isn't about the red and blue, the GOP and the Democrats. This is about adults and kids.
Literally this whole time you've made it about the GOP and the Democrats.
And at this point, you're either with us or against us.
Go ahead and keep that in mind. You're either with us or against us, because that's going to be used a few times by these people. Whoever is coaching them or paying them on what to say has told them to stress that line. You are either with us or against us. If you don't follow the same policy prescription you do, that means you like kids getting killed. That's what he's saying.
We're giving all our politicians a clean slate, and in the next election we are saying, if you are accepting money from the NRA, there is a badge of shame on you.
You know, I don't know how valid someone's opinion is when they're anti-NRA because it kills kids in their eyes, even though the NRA doesn't donate 1/90th what other people donate to Democrats, but that's okay. They're anti-NRA because it kills kids, but they're pro-Planned Parenthood. That doesn't jive in my head.
Because you are enabling things like this to happen.
A citation is so fucking needed here. Where is the NRA enabling things like this to happen? Please tell me.
David, do you have a specific agenda on how you think you can protect kids? Are these marches going to be mostly politicians talking to the crowds, or is this going to be students trying to mobilize other students?
This is a student-led grassroots movement, and this is not a debate. This is a discussion between Americans.
Really? This is a discussion? I'm sorry, but you don't need to bring dead kids into a discussion to push your policy prescription. You don't need to bring 17 of your dead friends to bring up a legislative change that you would like to see. That's not a discussion. That's bullying. We're a good couple minutes into this interview, and we have not heard one idea yet from these kids that would have stopped this from happening. Well, Sinatra, where is your ideas? I think all these schools should have armed guards. I'd be okay with paying for extra taxes on my rifles and ammunition to pay for these armed guards. I think it's perfectly reasonable not to be able to buy an AR-15 till you're 21. These are differences. These are differences that you could support. Trump outlawed the bump stock today. I believe that is perfectly reasonable. But sitting here complaining about the NRA does nothing except virtue signaling to other people who go, yeah, the NRA sucks.
Because we've had too many debates before, and we've gotten nowhere. We need a discussion where we hear both sides. From the Republicans, they can talk about mental health care, and from the Democrats, they can talk about gun control.
This is a bold-face, full of shit lie. Do you want to know why that is? We'll take a look right here. Florida legislators vote down a motion for assault rifle ban as Parkland students watch. The Florida House blocked an attempt to take a bill that would ban assault rifles. The vote came on the same day as the survivors Stoneman Douglas High School traveled to Tallahassee to plead to legislators for gun control reform. This doesn't sound like a fucking debate, does it? No, this sounds like bullying. Here's Stoneman Douglas and his parents heading out to have a discussion with the legislators. More media solidifying that these kids are policy experts because they went through a tragedy and that we should ban assault rifles because these kids say so. It is pertinent to remember that the Never Again movement is not about which party you stand with, but rather supporting the nation's youth and ensuring policy that will advocate for change for safety for our citizens. It's not about what party you stand with. We want a discussion, but you're either with us or against us. Here's a couple of the kids crying when the thing that they wanted didn't happen. Sorry, but you cannot take the guns away from law-abiding citizens because something happened. And you cannot use the graves of your friends to stand on to make it happen.
That's okay. Your tears say more than real evidence ever could.
But what we need to do here is come together not as Democrats or Republicans, but as Americans.
You realize by coming together not as Democrats or Republicans, that means you might not get what you want out of it, right? Because at the time you said this, I don't believe you thought that was a possibility, that you weren't going to get the policy prescription you desired.
And work together to solve this issue through love and compassion.
Through love and compassion, you say. Well, that is a very interesting choice of words, considering that when you didn't get what you wanted from the Florida government, the next trending hashtag was kill the NRA. Yes, kill the people who disagree with us politically because it's the right thing to do. Yes, kill the NRA because those are the people who are killing you, right? Between people who's saying that the dad who lost his daughter deserved it because he wore a Trump shirt, threatening to kill the NRA, and this push, this is the most disgusting use of a tragedy I have ever seen in my entire life. All being fomented by the media, who is pushing harder than they ever have for gun control. Look at this from Vox. Look at this right here. This is a perfect example from Vox. 22 whole stories about how the gun is to blame, how we need gun control now, how Trump is awful, all based around this shooting to push the policy they want to see. An article called Repeal the Second Amendment, just blanket ban guns, surfaces again. CNN saying, yeah, the kid was probably a racist too. The New York Times implying only Russian bots would stick up for the Second Amendment. Slate saying nobody is to blame but the guns. Parents have no effect on this. CBS News, NBC News, Face the Nation, and The Guardian are all trotting these kids out like they are some sort of policy experts because an awful, awful, evil thing happened in their life. So please tell me, David, what part about this is working together? Because it really seems like this is the more you're with us or you're against us thing than it is we need to work together.
Because this event occurred on Valentine's Day, sadly, and sadly 17 people had to take a bullet to the heart, and so did our community.
There's that phrase again, took a bullet to the heart. Whoever's writing this must not be very original. All I know that if I was one of these parents and these kids were talking about one of my kids who got killed and they said my kid took a bullet to the heart, therefore X, I would be furious. And I think any sane person would be. Having their dead child, their dead husband, or their dead relative, son, daughter, pimped out for a policy that these kids and the media want. When was the last time you talked to the victim of a terrorist attack? They put a terrorist attack victim family member on TV to hear what they had to say about a policy change. Never.
This is the time for change, and we can't let this ever happen again.
I agree 100%. Now, please tell me what policy you think would stop this from ever happening again, because there is zero evidence that a blanket gun ban would stop this. Virginia Tech is the worst school shooting ever not committed with an assault rifle. So please tell me what you think would stop this.
Well, let me pick up on that, because as terrible, and you know, I can't even imagine what you kids went through, as terrible as what happened at your school, I don't have to tell you, there have been other schools, Sandy Hook and Columbine and so many others, and, you know, the nation mourns, we are all very upset, and then we move on and nothing much happens. David, what makes you think this time is going to be any different?
I think this time's different because immediately, the same day as the shooting, I immediately went on Fox News, in fact, and talked about how this needed to be different, how this could not be just another mass shooting.
And that's understandable, and that's fine. People handle their grief in different ways. If you think action is the right way to go, so be it. But you cannot be upset when people criticize you for making bad moves, which is what you're doing. You're saying you're either with us or against us. And when you don't get what you want, Kill the NRA starts trending on Twitter. I'm not saying that's your fault, but it is the party that you are talking for right now. Kill the NRA starts trending on Twitter, but you're supposedly anti-violence. This does not make sense to me.
We've had 18 this year since New Year's Eve.
That is another mainstream media talking point that is patently 100% not true. There were 3 school shootings. 3 too many. 3 school shootings in the past 2 months.
And now is the time for discussion. It's not time for debate. It's time to work together. Our elected officials need to get together, overcome their political differences, and get some things done because they need to save the future of our country. And the future of our country are those children that are currently dying because politicians refuse to take action and continue to take money from these special interest groups.
See, this is why I think this kid is being coached. Those are all talking points that have been talked to death by the mainstream media over the past I don't know how many years. This is nothing original. This kid is not saying anything original. He's not doing anything original. He's just being pimped out by the media to push their agenda. And it's disgusting. Now, this is a genuine question. Why do you think people from the Orlando shooting weren't pimped out the same way? Or the Vegas shooting or anything like that? Why do you think they weren't pimped out the same way? I genuinely do not know. This isn't even the worst school shooting we've ever had. Why is this one so different?
This is a case of simple, please stop.
Stop what? What would you like us to stop? Stop not letting the media pick the policy for the country based off of the things they want? Please stop that because it happens to be something that affect your life? With the exception of a blanket assault rifle bill that was put forth today, but there is still no evidence to support that, there is zero policies being put forward that would have stopped any of these mass shootings. So what would you like us to stop?
Please stop allowing us to be gunned down in our hallways. People are telling us that we should run for president. We want an education.
She is so clearly watching something off screen. I'm sorry, but if you cannot take this seriously, I cannot take you seriously.
We want to get the support for March for Our Lives, the website that's going up today, that is up currently.
Yes, it's very obvious you want support, but who is supporting this? Who is paying for this stuff? Also, is it going up today or is it up currently? Can you please get your line straight? Look, I'm not trying to shit all over these kids that have gone through something that I could never imagine going through. What I'm trying to do is show the very blatant use of this tragedy by the media and pimping these poor kids out for stuff that they might not completely understand, just hoping that coaching them on their lines means that the message will get across. Whenever a tragedy like this occurs, I always feel like it's more important to talk about why it happened, not how it happened, or what tool was used. These people are advocating for a blanket gun control ban similar to the one done in Australia. The one done in Australia had 1/3 of all legal gun owners hand over their guns. It was basically a gun confiscation. The gun crime in Australia did not decrease a little bit. Immediately, right afterwards, the gun crime went up, and it is now just coming down to a fact where it is going back to right where it was before it happened. What is an assault weapon? Let's go there. What is an assault weapon? Or a weapon of war, like the media likes to say? Is it what it shoots? Is it the stock it has? Is it the grip it has, the optic, a sling? These are all things that are so subject to change on any gun. It's ridiculous. There are AR pistols out there. Are you going to ban those as well? There are plenty of decent ideas out there that could prevent this from possibly happening again, including taxing guns extra to pay for guards at schools, including no assault rifles, AR-15s, over 21. I think these are very reasonable things. But a blanket confiscation, besides there being no evidence that this will ever work, will be the most violent thing to ever happen in America since the Civil War, I'm sure of. Yes, what happened to these kids was horrible. Yes, it was an evil act committed by an evil person, but it was a failure on all fronts, including the FBI, the people in his life, the cops who came to his house, the Uber driver, the school who didn't even allow this kid on campus. Nobody did anything. We have a bigger issue to talk about here other than the NRA or AR-15s. And the media needs to realize that if they want real change, it's not the way it happens.